and welcome to this mobility flow class. So this class I designed with the intention of making sure we're supporting those who need a practice that does not have them going up and down on the floor. Particularly if you have limited mobility, going up and down on the floor can create a lot of stress on the shoulders. And so we want to make sure that our shoulders are happy and that they are not stressed. So we're going to use techniques that incorporate the chair, not the floor. The only time you might use the floor would be at the end of the class where you take a final resting pose there. So if anyone has any questions, wants to check in, feel free to go ahead and type in some comments, basically letting me know if you have anything you need help with in this practice. Let's see. All right, the comment section is open, so you should be able to have access to that if you are inclined. Let's go ahead and have a seat. So the other day when I was doing this recording, there was something going on with the audio feed, and on my end, it didn't look too great. But it seemed like it was fine when I went back and looked at it. So if you see an issue on your end, let me know. Just comment for me on the sidebar there so that I know to adjust. Otherwise, you're going to go ahead and have a seat. Find your way into a chair, and we'll start there. So we're going to open with a little mantra and mudra. And I should come closer to show what I'm going to do with the hands. So I'll go over this from here. Touching the thumb, touching the index finger, sa. Touching the thumb and the middle finger, ta. Touching the thumb and the ring finger, na. And touching the pinky, ma. Sa, ta, na, ma. This is the mantra we're going to work with and the mudra we're going to work with. The invocation or the meaning behind this is relating to the idea of tuning into your wisdom. Right? It is also related to the birth of yourself, the death, right, or transformation, the rebirth, manifestation, and so on. And so these are ways that we work with that energy. And we're going to do this internally. I will say it out loud so you can hear it. So of course, if you have a space where you're at, where you can do this out loud, that's what you want to do to bring the energy up, to kind of like raise the energy. If you're in a space where you need to just be more quiet, or you need to like quiet the energy, ground the energy, then you're going to do this mantra internally. I will say it out loud so that you can hear the sound. So the breath is going to connect us. Now, before we even get into that, we're just going to tune in, right? Tune in with our breath, tune in with our alignment. And so we start in this seated, easy pose, right? Easy meaning that we should feel ease in our alignment, but we may have to adjust and pay attention to the way we are seated. Most chairs tend to pull us back. If you ever notice, most chairs actually have a grade, or they have an indentation that actually pulls the spine into a misalignment. We're going to make sure if you have it accessible, make sure you have a blanket to sit on, so that blanket is giving you a tilt through your pelvis, and you're only sitting on the edge of the blanket. You are not sitting all the way on it. So if you're in an office setting, this is like This is clutch to supporting yourself in a chair situation on a daily basis, because you're going to be sitting there by the end of the day, your back is rounding out, and you're wondering why your body has taken on this pattern of slouching. Is because it's not supported. Unless your boss or your work situation is offering an ergonomic chair, you don't have what you need. So go ahead and find the alignment, paying attention to your breathing. And when you're ready, taking the breath in and out through your nostrils, aligning from the base to the crown, spreading out your toes, connecting to the four corners of each foot. Lifting through your crown, engage through your seat to sit tall as the shoulders soften away from the ears. Letting your crown lift and lengthen into the sky. So you're seated tall. You'll notice the feeling could be to disengage otherwise, right? Fatiguing the spine. You're not using the core muscles that you were blessed with. So you're tilting your pelvis forward. You're sitting just on the edge of the blanket. You're sitting close to the edge of the chair, and if you can avoid using the back of the chair, right, that's what we want to work with. And tuning into your breath, we establish the breath, connecting it to our posture. Right, the more aligned we are in the posture, the easier it is for the body to access the breath. Right, when we're seated or in slouched positions over a computer, right, the shoulders, I'm exaggerating, but they start to round forward. This cuts off the connection to the lungs and the heart, right? And we really want to keep access there, and it overworks the kidneys, which ironically is associated with anxiety and fear. When they're overworked and out of balance, those kidneys help support a very anxious experience of life. So we need to keep a balance there. Literally, the heart is lifted and the shoulder blades are open. We're seated tall, right? It shouldn't be a lot of work to sit here, but you are lifting from your sit bones, which are grounding you. You are lifted through your crown, elongating you. And the breath is steady and slow. As you close the eyes, you're tuning out from the world around you that distracts us and pulls us into other things. And sometimes our inner world can be distracting if we're always allowing ourselves to be pulled outside of it, into all the things we have to do and the places we have to be. And so you're just going to find that alignment from within. Use your breath as the meditation. The breathing is steady and slow, connected. The feet are hip width apart. The intervals of breath are between 3 and 6 seconds long, keeping it connected. Right, even if you're in an office setting, I mean, most of us are at home right now. So sometimes that space, that, separation between, home and rest gets a little blurry. So especially if you're working at home, taking some moments for this could be really valuable. Finding that connection to the breath, where the inhalation and exhalation is helping you to center and steady. We're going to start the mudra mantra Satanama. Satanama is a very old Kundalini, which, if you're not familiar with the Kundalini yoga, it is basically considered the first yoga that there was. And in Kundalini yoga, The practice is intended to uplift and shift, right? Uplift, enliven, energize, but also shift patterns, right? Change patterns, get unstuck, if you will. And so Sata Nama. I'll do it out loud with the breath so you can hear the more energized version of it. And if you prefer to make it more internal, then you can tune into it instead of the outward expression of it. So I'll take a breath in. Touching thumb and index, sa. Thumb to middle, ta. Thumb to ring, na. Thumb to pinky, ma. Sa, ta, na, ma. Sa, ta, na, ma. Sa, ta, na, ma. Sa, ta, na, ma. So you can keep going with this. Something to consider is that when we do the outward expression, so doing it out loud, we're stimulating the lungs, right? The lungs need vibration and sound to be expressed, to be clear. And so vibration, the sound, is often going to help clear and open up, get things moving. So that's another reason why if you're feeling any, depression of the lungs or respiratory stuff, this is a good practice to do out loud to get that energy moving. Sa, ta, na, ma. 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 And take a nice deep breath in and out. Drawing the hands to the heart, we enter our practice, taking a moment to cultivate this seed of intention, that which we would like to plant into our practice, right? Just like a garden that we might plant something in, right? The intention or, putting out there to the universe this idea of something we want to work with, right? We are planting the seed. It is too easy to plant the negative seeds about all the things we didn't do or I want to do or don't know how to do or la la la. Here we take a moment to plant a seed of positivity, something that is supportive, aligning with our true self, not our judgmental self or our critical self. So take a moment and feel out what that Satanama may have offered you, that mantra mudra, that which relates to shifting patterns. Maybe there's some patterns that you are working with shifting. Maybe there are some energies that you are working to uplift and move up and away from or out and away from. The take a moment to hold that in your mind's eye, free from judgment, free from critique. And we honor that as we move into a few exercises to continue the alignment of mind, heart, and body. From our seat, we're going to play with today a couple different ways to explore sun salutation. So we have the feet hip-width distance apart. If you are more endowed, right, in the chest or the Buddha belly, then you take wide legs because this will allow you more space in the forward fold, right? In the classical practices of yoga, there's a lot of, pressing of the body against the other limbs. But if you have more endowments, this isn't going to be accessible for you or leave you room to breathe. So find where you can breathe. Bring the hands to heart and Ardha Surya Namaskar, these half salutation to the sun from the seat, from the asana. Inhale, reaching out and up. Exhale, hands to the thighs and draping the navel, the heart, the forehead. Inhale, coming halfway up. Really press into your feet, press into your seat, navel to spine, tailbone lengthen. Feel that engagement, elbows back by your ribs. Exhale, reach toward the ankles or the floor, maybe blocks if that brings the floor closer. Inhale, as you rise back up, make sure you're pressing through the feet to engage your core muscles to support you, and back to the heart. We're going to do one more like this, and then I'm going to show a standing variation. So those of you who can have a different exploration. Inhale, reach out and up. Exhale, out and over and release. Not too deep. Inhale, halfway up. The back is flat. The heart is lifted. The shoulder blades down the back. Exhale, reach toward the ankles and lengthen. Inhale, press into the feet. Rise from the seat. You're connected to the core as you lift up, and hands back to the heart. Now, if you pretty much know that sitting in the chair is going to be the best option for you, you're going to stay here. Otherwise, I'm going to show this in the standing version. And I'm going to do this first facing you and then turning to the side. So feet are going to be at least hip-width distance apart. If you have broader shoulders, feet come wider. Shoulder width perhaps apart. Inhale, always a bend in the knees, reaching out and up. Exhale, place the hands on the thighs, draping the navel, the heart, the forehead. Release the head and neck, right? This is muy importante. You want to make sure that head is released. Come back up halfway, pressing off the thighs. Press into your feet, navel to spine, core engaged. Exhale, reach down and see if there's some space to travel. Make sure those knees stay bent. Head releases. Maybe you go down further. Inhale, lift your head, your heart. Keep your knees bent. Do not straighten the legs until your head is fully lifted and back to the heart. I'm going to show this from the side view. Inhale, out and up. Exhale to the thighs and redraping the navel, the heart, the forehead. Inhale, halfway up. Flat back, navel to spine, tailbone lengthen, shoulders back. Exhale, reach a little bit further down if there's access there. Inhale, head, heart, navel. Rise and return on the exhale. So what's the benefit of either one, right? One is a standing practice, so you're working with balance and centering yourself with gravity, right? The gravitational pull that all of us have in our lower abdomen core connection. So you're stabilizing and working on the balance when you're doing it standing. A lot of people can't get as deep of a fold as they get when they're in the chair, mainly because of the bending of the knee, right? It's often taught in the classical forms to keep your legs straight, classical yoga practices. But if you have hamstring tightness, you have low back tightness, neck tightness, right? This whole series of muscular connection between the top of your head and all the way down to your heels is going to create tension. The only way to take that edge off is to bend your knees. All right, so I'm going to do this one more time standing, and if you know the seated version is the way to go, and you have blocks, right, use those blocks because it's going to bring the floor closer to you. If you're in an office setting doing this, I mean, this is where, to release that low back is so important. And if you can incorporate a chair, a blanket, a firm blanket into your daily situation of sitting in that chair where you work at the computer to lift your sit bones so that your pelvis is tilting in the right direction, you're going to have that lift through your sit bones. It's always going to support you so that you're not doing this, right, all the time, which is like basically to disengage. So when you're ready, hands to the heart, pressing the feet out, inhale. You don't have to compare yourself to me, right? Make sure that you are moving to the stretch that your body is asking for, not in comparison to what I'm doing. I'm just a guide. Exhale full, right? Use those blocks. If they bring you closer to the floor, release that neck. When you're ready to come back up, lift the head. Have a little seat there as you press the feet away, coming all the way up to sky and back to the heart. From here, we're going to explore a little bit of Warrior 1 and Warrior 2. So you can do this from the chair. You can do it standing. I'm going to show it both ways. So, believe it or not, you get a deeper stretch a lot of times in the chair, especially if you have balance issues because of the way that the body is set up in this posture. So for this, I'm going to make sure I usually use 2 blankets, right? And when I've taught this in office or corporate settings, we don't always have a blanket, right? We just do with what we have. Most offices do have a padded chair scenario, but a lot of times there are arm rests, and so you have to find one that doesn't have an arm rest preferably. So to do Warrior 1 from the chair, I often would make sure that my chair is up as high as it can go, and I might use a block here. I might use an extra set of padding because I want to bring it up as high as I can. Why would I do this? Because I don't want to have to go so low that it's super intense on my legs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step, my right leg is going to be in the front. If you're acting as my mirror, it's going to be your left leg. I'm going to hold the back of the chair, and I'm going to step my left leg back on a 45-degree angle, wider than my hips more than likely. And I'm going to sit on the highest position that I can on my chair. Right? If I fold up my blanket, it brings the chair up higher. Right? The lower I go, the more depth is in the stretch and more into the psoas. Now, unlike your classical warrior, where your feet are on the same balance beam line there, I'm going to let my back leg extend pretty far out. Right? My blocks are in the way here, so I'm going to get those out of the way. Right? And I'm not going to be sitting far back on the chair. I want to be pretty close to the edge of my chair. And just that sit bone is supported here. And I'm going to push, though. I'm going to actively push through that leg that's placed in front or against the chair. I'm aligning that knee and ankle just like I would in a standing version. My back hand can be on my hip, right? My one hand, front hand for you is going to be on the hip. Back hand can be on the chair. And I'm going to really actively work to get my pelvis in a tilt so that I'm not experiencing any lower lumbar compression. My pelvis is in the tilt. My hips are as even as possible. So if it means I need to drop back through my right hip, I drop back. Right? Heart lifted, maybe the arms come wide. I always suggest to people, I'm just going to turn to face you so you can see this. For limited mobility, often we have shoulder stuff. We want to make sure we take care of those shoulders. So if it means your hands only come out to here, that you can keep your shoulders away from the ears, that's what you do. Right? Low position is also good, where your hands are down by the sides, still active and energized, but you're not stressing out the shoulder girdle. Right? This classical one tends to compress the vagus nerve and carotid artery. right? No bueno. Hands wide, perhaps, is better. Breathe here. Connect the pelvic tilt, the press away from the floor. Make sure the outside edges, all edges, the whole foot is connected. And when you're ready, bring your left foot in and push off the chair to come up and turn to the other side. So now, stepping back. Now I'm going to show this with blocks, right? Some people think the blocks are more stable, so I'll do this with blocks instead. Right? I can literally sit on the block. I can literally bring it up that high if I need to. Right? It really just depends on where the seat of the pose is for me. Right? I know for me, this is a tighter space. Right? I feel like having the blocks brings me higher up, where you can see I'm lifted up higher. So if I need to work with that, that's what I'm going to work with. Otherwise, blanket brings you lower, you'll get a deeper stretch, right? But most people go lower in this chair setup than they would if they were standing, especially if there's mobility issues, or you're wearing pants that are like the things you wear to work, right? So let's press away through the legs. Where do the hands want to be? Are they down by your sides? Right? Are they at the hips? Are your hips even? If your hands are on the hips, you can usually feel it out. The head lifted, your pelvis tilted forward. Shoulders softening away from the ears. Gaze to the single point of focus as you press the feet away from each other to charge up through your center. Make sure that the entire foot is connected, right, as you press away. Particularly through, let's lift our toes for a moment, particularly feeling out the perimeter points of the foot as you push away, align and connect. Deep, even breathing as you replant the toes. In and out through the nostrils. Hips squared off. And when you're ready, we're going to change gears, step the leg forward, and we're going to do this standing now. So, hip width distance apart, just in case you didn't recognize what I refer to here. Stepping from front to back. So we're going to bend the knees. We're going to step our left leg back. Notice my feet are on two tracks, not in the classical narrow stance. Right? Not only is this an adaptation from a true martial arts-based tradition, which yoga comes from, which we would never really stand on a balance beam unless that was like some specific technique we were working on, right? Stable energy is going to come from two separate train track, hip width distance apart placement of the feet. Press the feet away, right? And I'll show it on this line. Now you go as deep as you can. Keep in mind, if you feel at all unsteady, right, I can use my back on my chair to just kind of psychologically is half of it, right? Getting the brain balanced on both sides. I'm spreading out my toes. I'm pushing the feet away from each other, right? With a chair, I could play with depth. The only thing we want to watch out for, and this is common, so common for people who are like considered super adept in yoga, and it doesn't really come for them until they get later in their practices a lot, and for some it becomes very apparent sooner than later, is that your tailbone needs to be lengthening down to the earth. Your pelvis needs to be tilting forward. So if you're going so deep into the stance that you are not keeping that engagement of the pelvic tilt, then you are losing energy and you are disconnecting yourself from your seat or from the pose. Right? So keeping that connection, where do the hands want to be? Right? You can always shorten the stance if this has more integrity. Right? You will find over time you can increase it, but never let go of your pelvic tilt. Do the hands come low because of shoulder mobility issues? If so, How do you keep that energy in the arms? You reach the arms as if connecting to the corners of the earth. Through the legs, whether you're in a deeper stance, a shorter stance, the frame does not matter. It's the quality of your approach to it, right? That you're pressing away. Right? If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So my intention here in this practice is to keep you connected and to using what you have at your disposal, what areas of the body. I'm just not doing a chair yoga class that is only in the seat for this particular approach, because I'm hoping to reach those of you who still have access to the standing. But like I offered, you can always do these things from a seat with adaptation. Let's step forward. We've been there a while. Step on the other side. Keep in mind, I am working with you on, going over the details. If you ever need to come out sooner, come out sooner. And remember to breathe wherever you are. Pay attention. You are now, again, you're stepping back for 2 tracks, right? We're not doing this narrow classical business, right? This is what I teach people in my training programs, right? Because I learned a lot about yoga from informed by other martial arts, which are connected to the yoga tradition, and retained some of those roots. That's a whole other conversation. Let's pay attention to where the feet are, where the hips are, where's the pelvic tilt, right? Pay attention to that, right? I'm not going super deep in this stance necessarily. Like, it could be here, but that front knee has to be right over the ankle, not past it. And I'm not going to do myself any good here if it's not aligned over it. Breathing. Find this gazing point we call the drishti. This helps to balance the brain. Balancing the brain also comes from the breathing, right? We got to keep that breath moving so that the oxygen can get to wherever the body needs those bits of breath, right? Because the blood is literally carrying the oxygen throughout the body. The nutrients travel through the blood. Breathe, lift, lengthen through your crown, softening the shoulders down, the press away. Slowly return and realign your posture with the breath. Let's do a little chair. You can use a chair. You can use a wall. We're going to do a little tree action. So I call this the training roots, right? And you're still working with balance, whether you're in the most difficult tree or the most basic tree. We're going to stand with our feet either touching or just aligned hip width apart. You're going to press away from your midline. You can hold the chair with one hand, the hip with the other. You could use the wall. In this case, really, you could use a dresser, right? Whatever you have, a desk if you're at work and you need something taller. You're going to place your weight on the leg furthest away from the thing that you're holding. And then you're going to turn the leg closest to the chair, the desk, whatever it is you're holding. And in this case, it'll be my right side, but it'll be your right side. Push into the standing leg. Pay attention to the distribution of weight in that standing leg. Let's lift the toes of the standing leg and find the perimeter points that help you maintain contact and press in. Now, a lot of times people get caught up in this business where they drop into this hip. You want to press that hip in, align, connect. The opposite foot is connected to the ball of the foot. The toes are spread out and you're pushing away from the midline. Go ahead and reach the arm out. Maybe you find the balance with the opposite arm out. To balance the brain, we need the breath, we need the gaze, and we need the alignment. So check in that your pelvis is tilted as the tailbone lengthens. That's your base, aligning you and rooting you down. Then we need the upward lift through our crown as the shoulders soften down. The breath is steady, the gaze is soft on a single point of focus. Where do the arms want to be? Do you find more balance out to your sides? Perhaps palms at the heart. Maybe your branches grow tall and wide as you push navel to spine, tailbone to the earth, connecting the breath. Slowly return to center. I'll just move the chair to the other side. You certainly don't need to if you can just follow my voice and that works for you. I've seen many people, especially the people who've been doing the mobility flow practices with me for some years now, who have in their retirement found tree at a place of alignment where they can get here. That's really big because before that they didn't have the balance, right? But they kept practicing it. So, some days you even find out like, oh wow, there's something a little bit off. Balance isn't always just right there. You have to work for it and you have to accept when there's times that the body is maybe a little bit out of whack, right? You still play with where you are. So if this is where you start, this is where you start. Honor that. You're going to align, right? Your ankle, knee, and hip. You're going to open up that inner thigh of the leg closest to the chair. Reaching the branches out, softening the shoulders. And I didn't offer it on the other side, but if you already know it's there, you can play with bringing the sole of the foot closest to the chair. And if you're my mirror right now, this would be your left side. Now the tendency is to drop over into that other leg. I want you to keep that press away current, and you're pressing the sole of the foot into the midline, which means that calf. You are contrastingly pressing down into the earth, rooting through your tree, through the opposite side. Your arms stay wherever the balance is for you. Is it heart? Is it hips? Is it extended? Breathe wherever you are. Slowly back. So whether you're at home working and you only have a few minutes to jump in on this class, I always say some is better than none because, right, hopefully you're finding you have more time in some ways. Better to do something good with that time. So we're going to close the practice with legs up the chair if you are inclined. If this does not work for you, if you don't feel comfortable with whatever you're wearing to do that, you can take a seated shavasana. So I'm going to place a blanket back on the chair. And if I'm doing seated shavasana, it's going to look like this. Right? My feet are going to come wide. If I have blocks, especially if I'm fatigued, I'm going to need blocks or else it really won't be comfortable. And in seated shavasana is the only time in this practice, right, that we really want to lean on the back of the chair so that we're supported. The hands face the sky, and the feet are just trying to come out toward the outer edges as long as that feels supportive. If I have blankets or if I don't have a padded back of my chair, I'll usually put a blanket on the back of the chair so that my spine is okay with me leaning on the back of the chair at this angle, right? And it looks a little bit like this. I'm never dropping my head back in this situation because I really want to make sure that I'm just sort of stacking my crown and neck. I'm using the least amount of effort possible, but I'm setting myself up there to be supported. The legs up the chair, what does that look like? Legs up the chair is essentially an adaptation of legs up the wall, or viprita karani. So in this one, I'm going to actually probably, I don't know if what you'd be laying down on, but I have some students who, they luckily have an office setting, right? If they're not at the office, they have their office at home setting, but a place on the door, a place up the chair, whatever works. If your low back needs support, you're going to place a blanket on the floor. And then coming down, I promise this is the only time we'll get down in case, your mobility is just like, please don't make me get up and down. Then we won't. It's just going to be one time. Let's try to get the blanket in the back of the nooks of the knees. Make sure your low back is supported. If you still need support for the neck, one thing I offer to give self-adjustment is to take your thumbs and place them at the base of your skull and then lift your head and lengthen it back. And this should give your neck the alignment it needs, because it should actually be that your forehead and your chin are parallel in the plane to the roof or the ceiling as you perceive it. And then you're going to close the eyes. You're going to let your legs totally relax. If you are a really long limbed person, this setup will probably not work for you. Instead, you would take 2 chairs, and I'll just show it here. For those with long femurs, right, you're going to probably need a couple blankets stacked on top of each other, which I'll show half of it so you can see it. Right, I would take 2 chairs. I'm only showing you 1 chair. And you would have 2 blankets stacked up here. So then I would have another chair right here with another couple blankets. And my femurs aren't that long, but this makes a really big difference for those. Let's pretend I have another chair here. This makes a really big difference for alleviating low back, lower lumbar issues, just generally as a pose. Right? But those of you with long legs need to adapt. You shorties are probably not even going to use a blanket at all because your femurs are smaller, right? And it won't be a thing for you to fit your legs up there. All right, let's find quiet and settle in as we soften into the shape. Let your eyes relax. If you have not turned out the lights above your head, make sure you do for your own sake so that you can give yourself this time to rest. There have been many studies done about productivity, and probably we're finding that our productivity level is interesting, to say the least, during this time. But one thing that these studies have revealed about productivity and workplace or work situations is that when we actually take the time to rest the eyes, when we actually take the time for a real break, then we are more productive, right? It is one of the reasons that the lunch hour is so important. If you have only a few minutes, if you have more time, here is some space to give yourself so you can recalibrate. You're likely to be more efficient if you're giving yourself some kind of infusion, time out, to realign and reconnect. The eyes soften into the sockets. The mouth and jaw relax into the face. The weight of the limbs surrenders to the support below it. Here in corpse pose or legs up the chair, body relaxing in the chair pose, we are letting go as much as possible. Trust the body to take care of you, but it cannot do this unless we take care of it. No longer are you dictating a breath. Instead, you are just paying attention. Paying attention to where the body feels the breath expand and contract naturally.